Coogs house. Houston falls 82-81 in overtime. Lots to wish you coulda, woulda, shoulda done differently in that one.
You are Locked On Cougs, your daily podcast on the Houston Cougars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Cougs, Cougars After Dark post-game show here at Locked On Cougs. I'm your host, Parker Ainsworth. If you want to join the conversation, if you don't know what to say, tell us in the comments down below if you're watching live on YouTube. Just your thoughts on the game. I've seen a lot of I saw two people blaming me for this one, which is an interesting take. Lots to break down. This one is Houston falls 82-81 in overtime of a game that will be talked about from a referee perspective for probably at least the next month or so until these teams meet up again. I want to get into just some reaction and kind of thoughts on the game, a little bit on some worrisome stuff, maybe with I see someone commenting telling me that it's the end of the month. It's not quite a month away. It's February 24th, so just a couple weeks, 3 weeks away, a little over 3 weeks away. But I also want to talk in the second segment about Milos Uzan, a little bit of the sloppiness that I think started with him, but really didn't end with him in this one, and then kind of a where do you go from here kind of moment for Houston as Houston again falls 82-81 in overtime to the Texas Tech Red Raiders. The Red Raiders early in this game, the story of this game for what it felt like was going to be the foreseeable future was JT Toppin tossed early. Early in this game, JT Toppin rose past the ball across the court in a kick-out pass, and kick-out being the key word there, and kicked Jojo Tugler below the belt. The play was deemed a flagrant 2 foul. He was tossed, and after watching the replay, because didn't really know what happened, Grant McCasland lost his mind and also got tossed. And I'm going to tell you right now, my not-so-hot take on that is the rest of the Red Raiders left inside of the arena played a lot better after that. Now, you can't measure how JT Toppin would have played and what decisions McCasland. I get all that. But I do think they shot well above their typical percentages from three. They made some crazy contested shots. A guy that shoots less than 30% and a shot less than 15% in the month of January from behind the arc had 4 from behind, from deep, and 2 from like the logo. Texas Tech came out blazing after that one. And I say that to say that like Houston dropped on here because obviously a chance to take advantage of Tech without JT Toppin. I think is actually behind Darrion Williams as the most important player, but he is like their high scorer and that kind of stuff, right? You don't get those many chances. And coming into this game, I thought if Williams did not play, Houston had a chance to really make a statement and blow one open here, make a 15-point kind of win. And Vegas had as a 10.5-point over-under. Like I don't think I was that crazy in any of that. But I got some people here telling me I am. Oh, yeah, what happened below? There's someone coming in saying, yeah, telling me that I am a little crazy. Now, I will say a couple things here. One, as far as Houston getting the victory done, a lot of people are commenting on what did and didn't happen offensively in certain spots and what have you. Down the stretch of this game, Houston fell back on J'Wan Roberts. J'Wan Roberts took a nasty spell, appeared to hurt his ankle area of his foot, kind of stepped on a Tech guy's foot driving, and it ultimately like kind of buckled underneath him. He would then leave the game for a second. Javier Francis got hit in the nose head area. He would leave the game, and J'Wan Roberts came right back in, and Houston kind of rode the adrenaline of that down the stretch to force this one to overtime. A lot of people kind of getting they over-relied on that and that kind of stuff down the stretch. But ultimately, Houston can't get the job done. I maintain a couple different things here we'll talk about a lot, but people commenting here, people commenting on Twitter, people commenting on various platforms that Houston relies too much on J'Wan Roberts in these situations, to which I say we never said last year they relied too much on Jamal Shead in these situations. And I think that that's the deal here is J'Wan Roberts has emerged as that guy. It looks a lot different when it's your power forward versus when it's your point guard versus when it's your shooting guard versus when it's a wing or a center. Every kind of basketball player is going to look different when they're you're that guy. But ultimately, that's what it's going to look like when Juwan Roberts is that guy. And Juan's great. I don't think there's any question in that. He was playing through an injury in this one and kind of playing inspiring basketball. He finished with 18. Obviously, wish he had 20. The story here, though, and I've got Adrian points out that there was a quick whistle throughout the game. How much is it hurting offense when his gets Sharp's back in rhythm? Sharping out of the game for a chunk of it with foul trouble hurt a lot. After the ejection, and this is, I think, part of the same thing. So the ejection happens less than 4 minutes in, because it was before the U16. After the ejection, I felt like the refs had an incredibly tight whistle in this game. On the whole, make sure I get that number right here. There were 46 fouls called in this basketball game. And, Houston got a couple techs. I guess between flagrants and techs, Texas Tech had 4 of those as well, all put together, because the double tech on the coach tosses him. But man, if you take off the flagrants and technicals, the foul count was 24-18 in favor of the wrong team here. And I feel like, it's hard to say that it hurt anyone more than losing a guy like Toppin, but the refs calling a tight whistle will always negatively hurt what Houston's doing. Right. And that's certainly the way this game went immediately thereafter. You're constantly rotating bigs and playing a little small because you don't have the, length available because of the foul trouble and stuff like that in this game. It really, really, really did not help. The other thing that did not help is that Houston shot the, hadn't done this in a while this year, but Houston had a bad night at the free throw line, 66%, 18 of 27 from the foul line. Honestly, there were chances they were at the line on the front end of a 1-and-1 to go up. I think it was like 5 or 6 at the time in regulation, and they missed the front of the 1-and-1. Juwan Roberts down the stretch to the end gets fouled attacking the rim a couple of times because the young kid asked to guard him, can't do it, and Roberts misses free throws in that one too. You can't. If they shoot what they've been shooting the last 2 months from the foul line, they win this game at home and keep it rolling. It's ugly. We're talking about how ugly it was. It really, and I don't mean to oversimplify things, make your free throws. That feels very 1950s, but that actually kind of feels like at a couple different points, at least have changed the game, especially with how hot Texas Tech was from 3 in different stretches of this game. Again, a guy that shoots less than 30% and was shooting less than 15% from behind the arc in the month of January, made 4 of them. I mean, when they're playing like that, you're going to have to do everything possible and everything right, and Houston did not. The rebounding contest I also predicted to go in Houston's favor only went their way by 1 singular rebound. Typically, that's not what both of them do. And typically, Houston wins that rebounding battle, and typically Tech finds ways to win even if they don't. Houston typically offensive rebounds a lot better than just the 16 they had. I think a big issue when I was keeping track of the line, I think I got up to 9. It might have been 10 by the end of the game. Different moments where the rebound went off of a Houston player because they couldn't quite corral it or grab it. Honestly, you give Houston 4 or 5 of those rebounds in a second possession or in cutting off the ensuing Tech possession, the game goes a different way too. All of those little things, while they don't, add up necessarily one after the other, you put them all together and suddenly you have a very different outcome. Instead, Houston falls 82-81. Not the greatest. I got Tech people telling me I'm full of it. There's a whole Locked On Tech channel. It's nice that you're not over there talking to Chris Level. Chris is a great guy. I love Chris for what it's worth. I got ties to Lubbock and that kind of stuff and like people up there. It sounds like there are a bunch of fights in the stands and stuff like that, which I think was emblematic of a Tech contingent that I don't know very well, but or not the people I know very well up there, but gotta love that. That's some classiness from the 806. Gotta love that. Alan Snyder points out here, Houston only making 5 threes is very unlike themselves. Both teams practice, so I don't want to act like Tech wasn't trying to run Houston off the line. But Houston going 5 of 14 when they typically are shooting. I don't mean this negatively to the Tech guys that are in here. Houston has had a lot of games this year that shoot just over 50% from 3. That was kind of a coming back down to earth game, I guess. But if they go 6 of 14, they win that one, right? Those kinds of things those kinds of things hurt a lot. Now, I want to talk some about some sloppiness and some stuff with Uzan and the free throws and the foul trouble and stuff like that in the second segment. I am supposed to remind you guys that the Today Show is brought to you by Game Time. The best place to get last tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. If you're attending the Super Bowl or other playoff games, Coug games, and it was an electric environment. It almost kind of helped that there were a lot of Tech fans there because it kind of meant like back and forth yelling. I do wish, obviously you always wanted to be a sellout for everyone wearing the same color there. But if you want to get tickets to a Coug game or wherever you're going, go to Game Time and check out, get your way into the energy, the excitement, the connection, because it can be unmatched at a home sporting event for the Houston Cougars. I use Game Time picks to pick up tickets actually as a gift last holiday season. Got great feedback. Giving a gift as an experience is a great way to do things. So you've got Valentine's Day coming, everything like they have concerts, theater, sports games, you name it. Couldn't have been easier. Found a great deal using Game Time Picks. The all-in pricing is a game changer too. There's no surprises at the end. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Turns apply again. Create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONCollege, LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute, lowest prices guaranteed. Parker Ainsworth locked on Cougs here, talking about Houston falling to Texas Tech 82-81. You heard that right. Houston loses Tech at home in overtime 82-81. The story of this game is going to lead SportsCenter and stuff like that will ultimately be the ejection that happened like less than 4 minutes in. JT Toppin tossed early. Grant McCasland tossed shortly thereafter and reacting to it. And my read on this has been, I'll say consistent here. I think JT Toppin's actions probably were a flagrant 1. The jump from 1 to 2 is typically intention. I don't know that he necessarily meant to kick that hard below the belt. He definitely is kicking out his legs for space, definitely kicks him below the belt, etc. I don't know. The intention's hard to judge there, and I don't necessarily think he's a dirty player or anything like that, but he gets the flagrant 2. McCasland's reaction absolutely warrants an ejection. You can't freak out like that. You can't throw that spaz attack, and you also really can't throw a punch in the air standing less than a half arm's length away from a referee. All of that definitely warranted the ejection from McCasland. My argument, though, is it actually, the other players on Tech elevated their game and played better than I'd seen them play in the 2 games I watched coming in from Tech to get ready for this one. I guess 2, and then I watched one super sped up on the condensed game version on YouTube. But they looked really good after that. And so guys shot really well. They don't typically shoot well, and all those things make it really, really hard. I got Tech fans finding the chat. That is, I guess, a view's a view, I guess, but whatever. So Houston falls, and there's ways to fix this one, ways to talk through what could have gone their way. And I think, I mentioned free throws and the tight whistle and that in the first segment. But the other thing I think is interesting in this one is when you talk about Houston playing sloppy offense. A lot of people got frustrated that down the stretch Houston only found ways to get the ball to Jawan Roberts in kind of these isolation type of moments heading left. It got very predictable, and ultimately the travel call at the end, well, I think there's a kind of an overriding hand check there. Ultimately did come down to the Tech guy appropriately or at the right time, the Tech defender pulled the chair and made Roberts fall out from underneath, traveling ultimately heading to his left hand. Now, as that happens, people are upset about the predictability of that. And honestly, I said in the first, I'm going to say it again. I think Houston falling into that as intentional as the way they're feeding the beast down the stretch is just like when they would run a clear out for a Jamal Shed HB dive kind of play. It's just like when they'd run Sasser off looping screens before and let him work on the left wing. All of those things would happen over and over again. I just, and this one they came up a couple of shots short, and ultimately the reason they went to the isolation portion of it as opposed to different screening actions, I think personally, is that they looked like they had trouble holding on to the ball. Tech played tremendous defense in this one to force those turnovers and things like that. Certainly, better defense I'd seen playing the couple games I'd seen coming in, but Milos Uzan's typically, I think he has, what is it on the year, 6 assists, and his ratio is typically 6 assists to 2 turnovers per game. That's a great 3-to-1 ratio. That's one of the better ratios in the country for a starting point guard in a Power 4 conference. When you look at this game, Uzan had just 2 assists. Uzan had 4 turnovers. That's just unacceptably the other way around, right? That's not good. Um, that's not good. Like, there's no way to beat around that. You can go to each individual turnover and pull different anecdotes about different things. On the whole, the point guard's got to have better control of the ball. He got a little bit out of his win this, and I think part of that was there's a natural, like, do I need to step myself up or my game up when the guy across from you, Elijah Hawkins, having like a career kind of night over at Tech, really big night out of him for the Red Raiders, and so whatever that may be, trying to get the ball into a guy that's more reliable in this game's hands, getting into J1 Roberts. That's part of the reason the ISO. The other thing too is that a lot of the isolation you see, if you're paying attention, how's LJ Cryer kind of floating, elevating, and then dropping in the corner on both sides of the same side of the floor. That creates a kick out opportunity, kind of ensures a lot of isolation 101. And so, theoretically, if they were to ever have doubled, you'd get more Cryer shots out of it. They just never did. And ultimately, that's really where, like, just about all of the offense came from. When people ask for, like, I want more of this down the stretch, and want more of that down the stretch, my question is, like, well, what led you to think that that would have worked? Because, like, Uzan had a really impressive and important floater that ended up being an and one, but he had the turnover problem we just talked about, right? Arceneaux had a couple nice up and under moves, but it also had his own, like, kind of turning down shot at the rim moments a couple different times in the game. And do you want to risk putting that in the, down the line? Not great, right? Not great. Now, other issues to take this one and kind of run back and fix. Again, Texas Tech had not been a team that, at least from an analytical perspective, and again, I saw 2 games and one condensed one on YouTube, but it looks like to me Houston got outworked on the glass after that ejection as well. So when I talk about Texas Tech playing with their hair on fire after that, the aggression on the boards was certainly a moment where that showed up. Houston, from an analytical perspective, from they play this game 10 times that perspective, Houston should have out-rebounded Texas Tech by a lot more than one. Again, they had the 9 or 10 that went off their hands out of bounds. Tech had a few of those as well. And ultimately, you could argue that Tech and their aggression or whatever is forcing that, right? That's part of the way that one goes. You'd think you'd win the turnover battle by a little bit bigger margin too for Houston, because you think the defense, the home, all that kind of stuff. None of that seemed to work out as well. And you hope you come out as healthy. You don't know what Jawan Roberts, as far as more takeaways go, you don't know what Jawan Roberts' angle situation is going to be like long term when the adrenaline wears off. I don't believe we saw Javier Francis a whole lot after getting hit in the nose, which is, I don't think that was anything dirty or anything like that. That's just the way that one goes. But it's not great. You don't know what the deal there, what the deal happens there. And so Houston, where I predicted them to win by more like 15, falls in overtime by 1 with a bunch of things going wrong their way. And then after one big, gigantic thing goes wrong for Tech, I feel like everything else went right. Just across the board, though, and I'll say this again as my takeaway I said in the first segment, Houston had every opportunity to win this game and say, whew, ugly win. They had the free throws. They had the looks. They had the stops. They had a bunch of those things go their way. They play in at home. You should get more of those things than you don't. And instead, they do not. Now, I will do a quick, short third segment. It is a Cougars at Dark post-game episode. These don't always go 20 minutes, but we're going to probably get over that marker in this one. Keep the comments coming. I'll address a few of them. A few of them are just Tech trolls, but that's fine too. I do want to talk in a second, though, about what this game means in the big picture. Anyway, 1 sec. Parker Range of the Locked On Coogs, talking about Houston and Texas Tech finishing in overtime. Houston falls 82-81. Not a great look in a couple different ways from the Houston Cougars in this one. I'm being painfully reminded down below the not great look is probably more accurately myself predicting more like a 15-point win for the Cougs, but that's the way that goes sometimes. Now, I will say, after having talked about some things that went wrong in the course of this one, I'll get some comments in a second about things that went wrong as well. The Big 12 conference is not a conference that any team is going to go undefeated in. And frankly, for what it's worth, after the loss at the time of this recording, Houston is still tied for first in the conference, right? No one thought they were going undefeated in this conference. I thought they might run the table at home, but either way, Houston falls and is not like out of anything major. The big hope, I guess, you thought you had was with Iowa State and a couple other teams in front of you falling in the national polls. This might have elevated you to more like a kind of, can you be a number one overall seed kind of thing or number one seed in the tournament kind of thing. It would have been important to get this one for that. But in terms of winning the Big 12, in terms of moving forward, in terms of like getting ready for March, you're going to take your lumps. No team goes undefeated in this conference. And I know Houston stepped in last year and did really well pretty early and made it look pretty easy. But they also took those lumps early in the year last year. And honestly, you thought when you got past Kansas and double overtime a week ago, you might have taken that lump and moved on. Instead, you're 9-1 in conference with about 10 games with the second half of the conference slate to go, 10 games to go. Now, Arizona's also 9-1. Texas Tech's on your heels at 8-2. And if you end up tied, they've got the tiebreaker right now. You still got to go to Lubbock. That I cannot imagine that atmosphere given the ejection tonight that one's going to be. But Iowa State notably falls to 7-3 after 2 losses this week. Lost to Arizona on Monday with the heave from Caleb, what's his name, from Arizona. And then you lose to Iowa State lost at Kansas State today in a rivalry game there. Happy for Tang in that one, but you kind of separate yourself from Iowa State. You think on talent perspective that they're kind of up close in the running, but Tech's going to be on their heels as well. Tech's going to climb the standings after this one. So that's the way these things go. Fernando with throwing the double T in the comments, impressive. I don't know how to do that, but Fernando I think might be a Tech fan because of that. He says that Houston's the second undefeated team Tech has beaten this season. Undefeated Big 12 team, I guess he means. But this is impressive. Blessed and highly favorites. It's never the Blues again. Well, they're only going to wear them once a year, so I don't think we have to worry about that. But that's a fair point. Jokes on the Schmedium T-shirt happening out there in Iowa State. That's the way that goes. Texas Tech fans calling me idiots. Texas Tech fans calling me idiots. Texas Tech fans calling me idiots. Michael Brunner calls this a wake-up call, and I agree with that. Again, last year, I think they played their best ball after they kind of refocused. They lost at Kansas for the third Big 12 loss. We're having trouble winning on the road. Came back and kind of got things under control. Honestly, there's no reason this can't feel like the same kind of thing. Houston went on to not lose another game last season after the game in Fog Allen from that until the Big 12 Conference Championship and the conference tournament. I think there's no reason that this can't feel like a similar kind of thing. Now, I've got people in Twitter comments, I think, trying to blame me for this loss somehow, but that's the way that goes. I guess you make a prediction, you think some team's going to win by double digits, it doesn't work, and so suddenly you're the reason things went wrong. Now, people tell me I got a lot of crow to eat, people coming in, while they're going to keep coming in, those kind of things. As far as other things about the future of this team and program, does it another quad one opportunity lost? Yes. Are there going to be plenty of more quad one opportunities throughout the rest of the conference play? Yes. In fact, Houston's got one in the relatively near future. They go to Oklahoma State on Tuesday. And they have host Oklahoma State Tuesday at Colorado next weekend. But then a week from Monday, they got Baylor at home. And that's going to be another one. We saw what Baylor did to Kansas today, if you're paying attention. Came back from a big halftime deficit to beat Kansas by 10. That's a tough win, and losses happen. It's not the kind of season they were going undefeated in. I didn't think this one was going to happen, but it's not the kind of season they're going undefeated in. Free throws, make less turnover mistakes. And as much as Tech wants to talk about their defense, it's hard to defend a free throw. Houston's going to make those. Houston's going to make those when they count in those moments, but either way. We'll say anyway, Parker was wrong on his prediction on Friday, and we'll see if things stay wrong or where else things go. We have all kinds of things planned for the next week. We've got Oklahoma State game on, like I said, Tuesday night, Colorado next weekend, other football stuff happening, kind of some weirdness with spring practices happening across the country, given some incidents over the weekend. So we'll have those kind of things to break down and talk about as well. Make sure you subscribe and hit the bell so you know we're live. Locked on Coogs as more people filing us throughout tech comments. Locked on Coogs is here each and every weekday as your number one daily Houston Cougar podcast. That one was funny, though. That comment was funny. Anyway, thanks for tuning in, even if you're Red Raider. Locked on Cougs, from the Locked On podcast. I mean, your team every single day. Go Cougs.